Hello my friends, and a very warm welcome back to my painting channel. And in this video we're going to be making a really cool scenic base out of this old sprue. Now I know, just the same as me, all of you guys have got loads and loads of sprue left over from all of those plastic miniatures and all of those amazing models that you've been collecting. So we're going to kind of recycle these into a really cool looking scenic base in a very quick, easy, simple fashion. This is going to be a great looking base, but it's also going to be really easy to do. So yeah, this is just a bunch of sprue that I've got left over from a ton of Eldar models that I bought from Games Workshop, and as you can see they come in all different sort of shapes, sizes. The sprue is all gnarly and twisted in different ways, and so that's all you got to do is just kind of cut them up and figure out sort of what kind of base or what kind of theme you're going to be making. So I've printed out a couple of bases to be able to make a few different cool looking sort of sprue bases, if you like. So these are just simply 50mm bases. They're nice and plain, nice and flat, nothing major, nothing special to them, just a nice plain base. These are the tools I'm going to be using. So I'm going to be using a set of snips, a little craft knife, and some files just to file the edges down. Now using the snips, what I'm going to do is just snip a few bits of the sprue apart. I'm going to try to focus on some of the longer areas at first, because we're going to kind of want to make long areas on our base. This is going to be a really cool perfect sort of length piece that we can cut up. Now the hardest part is you just got to chop all of those really extra bits off, so all of those little knobbly bobblies and all of these bits that are sticking out everywhere. So we're just going to cut all of these off. This is going to leave quite a bit of sort of broken area, or sort of little bits of the plastic and little bits left where you've cut, but that doesn't matter. That's what the files are for. We're going to file all of that back down once we get there. So yeah, just try to take your time, be careful. The reason why I'm covering the sort of bulbous bits with my thumb is because if you clip those too close, you can also you can sort of they kind of launch off the sprue, so you can kind of end up with bits of plastic or bits of sprue launching around the room. So just by covering it with my thumb, it's just going to stop it from launching across the room and sort of hitting my wife. So yeah, but just by covering the bits, it just keeps it nice and safe and nice and close. Then just using the hobby knife and the file, as you can see, I'm just going to file down all of those bits that we've cut off. I'm also filing the edges as well, so the edges, I don't want them too sharp. I'm going to file those down so that they're a little bit more rounded. This creates a little bit more of an organic feel to this. The last thing you want to do is have these really sort of aggressive sharp edges so that it looks too square. You kind of want to like rub some of the edge away on these, and that's what will give you a little bit more of an organic look, something that's a little bit more pliable, something that you can work with a little bit better. Sometimes if you use the really sort of sharp edges, the sort of extreme edges, then you can find that they that it doesn't look quite as nice when you make these cool little bases. So again, just using my hobby knife, being very careful, as you can see, trying to make sure that I'm just using this in small sharp increments, so just very small increments to cut the little bits of the sprue. Just be very careful whenever using a hobby knife. Doesn't matter what kind of hobby knife you use, just be very careful of your digits. You don't want to be cutting your fingers or your thumbs or anything like that. Like I say, you can see that I'm just using this downwards off the model, and I'm doing it in very small sort of increments. Then I'm just measuring up what we need for our base. As you can see, we've got our 2 parts here. So I'm just measuring this up and just making sure that this looks kind of where I want it to be. And then again, just cutting and snipping these little bits down. Now that's giving us sort of the bare sort of look, the bare essential kind of look of our rail track. So this is giving us the sort of basic look as to what we want. But we're going to level this up and we're going to step this up. So that's all I'm using is a few bits of craft matchsticks. As you can see, they're very simple, very easy, just small bits of wood. You could use lollipop sticks instead if you wanted, but instead I'm going to use these matchsticks because I find sometimes the lollipop sticks can be too wide, so I didn't want to cut them down too much. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to measure these so that they're quite similar. They don't have to be perfect. That's the cool thing when we are kind of mimicking sort of real life, is nothing is perfect. You know, wood isn't perfect, and all of these things. So we're trying to make sure that these bits are nice and organic, and they look really sort of different and individual. So we're just going to build all of these little bits up just like so, and I'm putting 2 together at a time, and then I'm just placing them on the base again, just prepping to see where and how this sort of base is going to look, just kind of giving myself an idea as I work. It's always good to have an idea while you work, just so that it gives you a completion and an area as to what you're aiming for. And there we go. By putting the sprue on top, that gives us an idea as to how our base is going to look. So I'm just going to use some diorama texture, earth texture from Vallejo. As you can see, I've just got this really nice sort of earth texture here. This is one of my favorite earth textures, one of my go-to ones. I use this on a lot of bases. I find it very, very easy to manipulate. It dries down perfect, and it gives you this really cool sort of effect that you can use for all sorts of different things, whether it be dirt, whether it be concrete or asphalt, or all these different things. So you can use it to manipulate and sort of make these really cool diorama style effects just by adding a little bit of color to it. So that's all I'm doing is I'm using a very old brush. This is my basing brush. As you can see, it is a little bit worn down and beaten up, and I'm just using a dabbing technique so that this creates a random pattern on the floor, and that will make it look a lot more natural and a lot more like a sort of dirt and earthy base. And then that's all I'm going to do, just using a little bit of super glue. I'm just going to glue down one of the edges of the matchsticks. As you can see, I'm just trying to be very careful. I'm using a set of tweezers for this, and then I'm just placing them in and pressing down with my finger just like so, trying my best not to get any of this glue onto my fingers, because this stuff glues my fingers together like no one's business. It glues your fingers together in a heartbeat. So I'm just trying to get use the sort of the tweezers and things, and then just pressing it down, because I don't want to get any of this glue on my fingers and glue my fingers together. And again, that's all we're doing, is just putting these bits onto the base. Again, just following what we had done earlier, so just giving ourselves an idea as to where these are going to be. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect, because life isn't perfect. It's all just about creating character and creating this really cool looking effect through such a simple and quick way, just like so. And again, it's all about sort of trial and error. So as you can see, I'm just quickly moving and manipulating and seeing where they're going to look best. It doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to be in the exact perfect area, and then just cleaning up afterwards. If bits do overhang over the base like this, you can always just snip those back off, just like so. And then it kind of adds to that base, it adds to that thematic, great looking sort of effect. From there, then we're just going to glue these sprue bits on top, as you'll see in just a second. Just adding a little bit of the super glue onto the wood, and then just placing the rail tracks where we want them to be, just like so. Just like so. Again, being very careful not to get this onto my fingers. We don't want to glue our fingers together and then not be able to hobby anymore, so we're just trying to be as careful as possible. And there we go. The good thing is, with the super glue, it doesn't dry instantaneously, so if you do have one that sticks out a little bit more than another, just like so, you can see I'm just manipulating and moving so that this looks as uniformed and as straight as possible, just like this. And then just pressing it down and leaving that to dry. Once that's dry, then we're going to prime the whole base. So for this, I am using the Army Painter primer. I'm using the ash grey for this, so I'm using a different grey. And then once that's grey, we're going to move on to painting all of the different bits. So we're going to start by using a green ochre for the base. So this is going to add a lot of colour to this muddy area. So when I was saying about the sort of diorama base, you can change and manipulate and add loads and loads of different colors to create loads and loads of different effects. For this, we're using this green ochre because we want this to have a almost kind of Wild West theme. So we're going to kind of make this look a little bit kind of deserty, or a little bit sort of dry earth, a little bit powdery and things like that. So this green ochre is a great color to do so. Now, if you don't have this green ochre color, you can use a khaki color. That will do a very similar sort of thing. It's a similar kind of color. I just find this to be a little bit more of a yellow sort of tone to it, which adds to that sort of Wild West, as I say, that kind of deserty, earthy kind of look. And we'll build that through as we go as well. As you can see, I've thinned the paint down nicely so that this takes to the miniature really well, especially when you're doing bits on the bases, because you kind of want the paint to sit in the cracks as well. You don't want to sort of dry brush this across the top. You want this to cover all of that area. just like so. Now once that's done, then I'm going to use a leather brown from the army painter. So this is a nice flat brown color. This is a really good middle of the road brown, and this is what we're going to use just to paint all of those little wooden areas. So we're going to paint all of the wooden areas that we've glued down, so those matchsticks. I'm going to try to be as careful as possible not to get this across the base area as well, but it doesn't matter massively too much, because at this stage you can always fix this and you can always go back and paint the base bits back in. And we're also going to cover all of this in a wash in a bit as well, so this is going to tie those colours together and kind of hide a few of those little mistakes and things as well. So don't worry too much about getting this perfect. It's not the end of the world. It is just a case of trying to be as careful as possible, but it doesn't matter if you do make a mistake or two. It's not, like I say, it's not the end of the world. We can always build up and fix from there anyway. So as you can see, this is a nice middle of the road brown. This is a great colour for this kind of wood, and it's going to allow the wood then to stand off the sort of green ochre that we've used for the earth tones really well. Now once we've done that bit, we're going to use gunmetal, which is a nice dark silver colour from Vallejo, and this one is just to go across the rail lines. This might seem a little bit too bright at first, but don't worry, because as I say, we're going to put a wash over this, we're going to tie this down, and it's all going to blend in quite nicely. At first, these colours do almost seem to be too cartoony and popping off a little bit too much, but as I say, we're going to fix all of that, we're going to build all of that up in a bit. So yeah, just again, same as before, trying to be as careful as possible not to get the silver on all of the other bits. Just trying to be nice and careful. Again, doesn't matter too much because it's easy to fix at this stage. And of course, we're working with a base, so it doesn't have to be absolutely pin perfect and the sharpest and clearest and smoothest paint job you've ever done. So don't worry too much. Once all of that's dry, then we're then going to move on and use a strong tone. So this is an army painter quick shade. You could use a Agrax earth shade instead from Citadel if you wanted to, or you could use the sepia tone from the Vallejo big tubs that I use. Pretty much any brown sort of earthy basey colour, and that's all we're going to do. We're going to use a large base, a large brush for this one, and this one we're going to manipulate this onto the base as much as we can. Now the good thing with this strong tone is it is a little bit dark, so it does give you the opportunity to really darken and tie those colors together in a really nice fashion. So just trying to put this into all of those areas, just like so. There we go, just trying to paint this across all of those areas. Like I say, this is going to darken and tie those colours together. It's going to give you this really nice dark brown effect. It's going to tie all of the colours. It's going to sit in between all of those grooves and cracks on the wood, which is really great because that's really going to pull all of the depth out of the wood, and it's going to make all of those sort of wood grain effect look really cool. It's going to bring that through the model in such a quick and simple and easy way. And again, this is going to add a little bit of like a dirty colour and a dirty tone onto the silver as well, which is kind of going to make the silver look a little bit more worn and a little bit more real. That's kind of what we're looking for. So once all of that is dry, and it is important to let this dry, I do rush a little bit when I'm making videos, so just try to make sure that you let it dry down as much as possible before adding like your wash and things like that. And once that's dry, then we're just going to go back with that green ochre, and we're just going to do a light dry brush with a very small sort of dry brush. We're just going to dry brush some of the colour back up. Again, don't worry too much if you make a little bit of a mistake. It's not the end of the world. Again, we can still fix it from here. It's no big deal, no big drama. So just using that very fine dry brush, just going to dry brush all of this lighter colour and lighter tone back up, just like so. Dry brushing is a really cool sort of technique for this kind of thing, especially doing bases, because you kind of get the sort of highlighted tone just across the top, but without working too hard for it. It's very quick and very easy. And once we've done the earth bit, we're just going to use a beige brown now across the wood slats. So, like I said, it doesn't matter if you make one or two little mistakes along the edges of the wood slats, because it's easily fixed by just adding a little bit of a dry brush just back on top, because this is going to bring that brown tone and that brown colour back in and just build up that lightness and build up that contrast between where the wash has sat between all of those creases and all of those cracks, and then the lightened sort of dry brush highlight just across the top, as you can see. So just being careful, just trying to be as sort of careful as possible with this one. Again, it doesn't matter because we can fix it if needs be, so it's not the end of the world. And once that's done, we're going to use a Kokum Copper. So this is a scale 75 paint, and this is just to give us a complete sort of dry brush highlight. So this is just giving us a little bit of an extra tone, a little bit of an extra color, a little bit of extra depth through that wood, so that wood doesn't look too singular, doesn't look too sort of monotone and sort of flat brown. This is just giving us that little bit more sort of tone, texture, and sort of warmth through the base as well. And again, this Kokum Copper is going to tie this a little bit more into the sort of earth color tone that we've got on the base as well, just tying those colors together nicely. Then again, for the track, we're going to use the Army Painter sort of silver here. This is a nice lighter silver. This is going to give us a much sort of more vibrant sort of highlight to us. So as we dry brush this is going to almost look like a steel sort of color, which is a really nice sort of silver. We're just going to build this up, and again, just very gently, very lightly. You don't need too much paint. This will automatically straight away allow that silver to really pop. And I'm just going to dry brush down the sides as well. Now once that's done, we're going to make by hand our own little bit of tumbleweed. So I was looking around wondering whether or not I needed to buy tumbleweed, and instead of actually buying tumbleweed, I decided to make my own. So that's all we're going to do is take one of the matchsticks, and very carefully and very gently, we're just going to scrape down some of the little wooden areas of the matchstick, and we're just going to like shave some of these bits off, as you can see. And we're shaving this down, being very careful, as I said earlier, when working with a hobby knife, not to affect or catch your fingers or your thumb or anything like that. And that's all we're going to do is just gather all of those bits together and just kind of fold them and roll them between your fingers and your thumb. We're going to fold and roll them together until they become sort of like this almost tumbleweed kind of hay style kind of look, just like so. And there you go, we've got our own handmade, cool looking, really interesting piece of tumbleweed. And it's as simple as that. You don't need to go too crazy, didn't need to spend any money, and we've made something that looks really cool and is going to add to the scenery of the base as well. So something nice and simple, nice and quick. So once we've done the tumbleweed and we've created the tumbleweed, we're going to use a bit of Mod Podge here. So this is a nice matte sort of glue. And that's all we're going to do is we're going to place a little bit of this matte glue, this Mod Podge glue, just into a few areas on the base. And then we're just going to press down our tumbleweed just like so. Now I'm adding Mod Podge on top of the tumbleweed as well, because when I add the glue to the tumbleweed, that's going to solidify, it's going to strengthen, and it's going to build up that tumbleweed. It's going to mean that it's going to dry the tumbleweed down, and that's going to stay nice and like strong on the base, and it's going to solidify that wood as well. From there, I'm just adding one or two little dry looking tufts. So I've got these little sort of grass tufts, and I'm just adding these one or two really dry sort of deserty looking ones. And then for another stage, then another option, we're going to use a cool bit of weathering powders. So if you've watched the channel before, you would have seen me use weathering powders in the past. So I'm just using the sandy yellow sort of weathering powder here, and I'm just dabbing this around the base, and this is adding to that sort of desert tone, desert effect, that sort of style. And as you can see, that's helping to tie the wood area of the sort of wooden slats, the silver areas, and the sort of earth tone together. We're just tying all of that together. Now I'm taking this straight out of the pot and just using a big sort of basing brush, just dabbing this around the base just like so. And then that's all I'm going to do is just use it a nice beastie brown colour. I know that people have a very different sort of take on which sort of colours they prefer to sort of finish off their bases. Normally I do black. Black seems to look and finish my bases off quite nicely, but because of all of the earthy tones on this one, I decided to go with beastie brown and just add a brown colour around the base instead, and this will tie all of that brown and all of those earth colours together, and that will give us a really cool finished looking scenic base out of recycled old sprue. As easy as that. So you have to let me know below in the comments what you thought of this video. What would be, did you enjoy the most? What was your favourite part? Did you like the tumbleweed? Did you like that we recycled some old sprue? Did you like how easy it is to make this really amazing looking sort of Wild West railway track? So yeah, please get in touch. Please let me know. I love talking with you guys. So yeah, as always, my friends, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your positivity, your energy, and of course your patience with waiting for me to get new videos out all of the time. As always, I cannot thank you all enough. I appreciate all that you do here, and I will see you guys on the next one. Please take care of yourselves, and diolch.